Well, it's PC building time again, and we got some parts. So we have a 500 watt power supply, 550 watt UVGA power supply, 970 EVO, 9600K, 16 gigs of RAM, a Blu-ray drive, a 2 terabyte hard drive, a low profile CPU cooler, a motherboard, and a Cooler Master. What is this? A Silencio S600 case. So it's gonna be a low presentation PC, just kind of mid-range. And we went for like nicer stuff here. We didn't go bottom of the line. Yeah, you could have gone cheap and you could have gone optimized and like got some cheaper parts, gone with like stock cooler and stuff like that. But wanted a little bit something people wanted a bit nicer. So we went with that. This is what we have. And you know what? I'm gonna just kind of do a slow style video now. It's gonna be a lot of just talking and watching me build stuff. Normally I like to start with new PC builds with the motherboard. So open it up. I actually haven't worked with this new of parts for much recently anyways. So Z390 here, we got a Prime Z390. I don't really keep up. There's a lot of debate online, it seems to be with VRM, and I'd say some of it is overstated with like all the tier and ranking stuff, because realistically for most people it won't matter unless you're doing heavy overclocking, which I'm not doing. And realistically, most people aren't. But you know, it is nice to keep track of like VRMs and stuff, but you know, it's not even that high end of a CPU. But, talking about it, hey, we got a motherboard, so there's motherboard. And then put the CPU in. So it has a 9600K. Like I said, I did not pick the parts for this. So this would have not been my choice if I could have picked. If it was my choice, I probably would have gone 9600 or 9400. The problem is CPUs are hard to find these days. So due to world events at this moment, yeah, it's hard to get CPUs and pretty much any computer parts in general. You just can't find them. So 9600K is like the only 9600K is the only one, and you can get the KF models as well. But 9 GPU is always nice to have, and that's what we're using in this build. And part of this build is it needs to be able to run a few monitors. So that's why we have this motherboard, which has a DisplayPort, an HDMI, and I guess you can do USB-C for video. I haven't done that much though with that. So we have a 9600K. And I guess you got a nicer board too. You know, people debate like cheap boards. I've worked with a few cheap boards. Especially like looking at them in the past, it's like if you can spend the extra couple bucks, it's not a bad idea to get the nicer board. Because you get a lot of extra goodies. Like some of the super cheap ones I say stay away from because you only get like 2 DIMM slots. And it's like, if you want to keep it for a long period of time when you want the extra memory, you're probably going to want the extra DIMM slots. But, you know, it's up to the person. It's up to how much it's worth trying to optimize it. We're going to put the CPU in now, making sure to align it. Intel ZIF sockets, they're pretty nice to use. Though I've had enough weird issues. So, story time. I have a PowerEdge 2950 that it's just, I don't know if it's accidental or I actually intentionally broke it, but I've just slowly banged up the sockets on one of the CPUs. So now it's like basically a single socket system. So like, it's like, I don't know. And it's also a PowerEdge 2950. So those are basically useless these days, and I need to find a way to get rid of it. It's like I'd normally try to Craigslist it, but with something like that, it's like, who even wants it? Coming in next to this system is RAM. So 16 gigs DDR4. Yeah, I'd say 16 gigs is the sweet spot these days. I would not get 8 in a new system, just because 8 gigs of RAM, in my view, is you can use it up with a browser and a few other background applications. The other thing is this motherboard has the Asus put one side in the DIMMs. They argue how it's better. Oh, am I putting in... Of course I'm putting in the DIMM wrong. But they argue how it's better. I'm not a fan of it. But, it works. It holds your memory in place, so that's fine. And I guess last thing is now we have an M.2 drive. So, thanks to advances in high-speed storage, we get to put storage directly on the motherboard. M.2 I'd say is realistically a pretty good standard. I'm pretty happy with it. I wish they would have... The confusion's annoying because they did SATA and PCIe. And especially with how, like, the slotting is. M keys are pretty simple because most everyone knows M key equals PCIe X4. But then you have BNM, which is normally SATA, but sometimes it's PCI Express X2. Those are pretty well. And now we get to dive through the motherboard things to find the little screw. Found the M.2 screws, and then this brought up another question, which was, where should I put the M.2 drive? Because I realized now there's 2 slots. So there's the normal slot that I was going to use, and then there's the heatsink one. And I'm like, well, I guess you should use the heatsink one. There's debate on should you actually use the heatsinks or not, because sometimes you're like, yeah, but the DRAM doesn't want to run that hot, and it's like, nah. Realistically, it really won't matter. This system doesn't even need much I.O., and when you're doing things like booting Windows, you're not using it much anyways and loading documents, so you're never going to get into thermal throttling anyways, even without a heatsink, but it's probably not bad practice. Also, I like to be nice to myself or whoever ends up using this whoever ends up servicing it later. I'm going to just put this M.2 screw in the second holder, so if you happen to put another M.2 drives in later, they don't have to buy or hunt down this in the motherboard box, because realistically, I hate losing accessories on boards. Happens a lot. Another weird thing I found diving through the motherboard stuff is I found like the normal cables. I found a fan holder, but I don't think it had a fan, which I find odd. I think it's for the VRMs. Looks like it just kind of attaches here. Has things, and it looks like it kind of just sits above the VRMs like here or something. Here-ish? But that's odd. That's an odd spot to put a fan. I'm in the mindset of it doesn't really matter. And since it didn't come with a fan, and it's also a 40mm fan, which is not known for being the quietest. There's a lot of talk about them just failing, but I haven't seen it that much these days. You also get an SLI bridge, which is cool and all, except for the fact that it's the old standard, not the high bandwidth ones, which they're really pushing. Next step, CPU cooler. You get a little Noctua one. I haven't worked too much with Noctua stuff. I keep telling myself I'm going to work with Noctua systems, but I've just never been able to put down that much money for a fan. These are always fun to mount because you have to find the exact hardware. It looks like it kind of just sits on here and you screw in something, but I'm going to go read the manual. Yeah, wow, I guess it's just a small heatsink and it's super simple. That was as simple as I thought it would be. Pretty much put it on, flip it upside down, and put these 4 screws in until they're tight. So put in a little bit of Arctic silver. I love how the internet, I don't know if it's just people on the internet or if it's people in general like to get upset about little things like thermal paste. While realistically, yes, there's ways to optimize it, but also it's a couple degrees max. And unless you're doing like sub-zero overclocking, it won't matter. CPU fan, I guess you want the cable to be somewhat nice, but I guess it can't go the full diagonally, so this will have to do. And there it is on my messy test bench. So I guess this is the final realize if I did something wrong, or if a part's DOA, which I really hope it isn't. But here we go. The one thing I wish this motherboard had, which it appears to not have, is a thingy to power it on, a power switch. So let's play find the button. Is it? Nope. There it is. I guess I have some hard drives plugged into that system as well, because I can hear all of them winding up. And I gotta plug it into my network too. And then, looking at the screen here. Oh, we get signal. Sweet. Okay, let's go into the BIOS and play some settings. First of all, this has one of those fancy new style BIOSes, which I am personally not a fan of, but others are. Not the boot menu. Advanced modes F7. So, first of all, F7 boot menu. A few other things to go through. First of all, make sure the time's set correctly. The date is the 21st, so I'm gonna go play with time. Is it not actually let me select it? That's cool. There gotta be a way to do that. Do time normally. AI overclock tuner. Don't turn it on. If you do have memory that supports the Intel's, what did they call it? It's just it's whatever the auto overclocking thing is. I forget the name. But turn that on, so XMP. XMP is the name. So I don't want you to enhance performance and do because what a lot of boards do apparently is they whenever you turn on XMP, it will go and say XMP's on.
and now it runs at its rated speed, so DDR3 3600. Base clock frequency is 100. Okay, now it turns off that, so it enforces all the standard limits, and then everything else you want stock. Yeah, and while it's not technically running the CPU at stock because the memory's overclocked, it's not really gonna matter. It should be that, but you should probably run a quick memory check, and realistically, it's probably fine just to play around with it and see if you get any weird errors. But you should run something like Prime 95 mem test just to make sure. Normally, there's not too much to do. A lot of this is just kind of if you have a weird use case or you're overclocking it really hardcore, use it. But like CPU configuration, yeah, it's like, oh, it has features. SGX, like, yeah, SGX is kind of cool. SGX is kind of cool. Might as well leave it on. It has security holes, but yeah, might as well leave it on. PCH, it's like, it's not too much. Is it under PCI Express config? Yeah, you can do things like PCIe speed, which can be useful if you have weird issues. But there you go. Intel PXE boot. I turn this on because I use PXE boot to do my installs, but most people probably shouldn't have that on. If you know what PXE boot is, it lets you boot from the network. You probably want it. If you don't, well, that's cool. It gives you smart information. NVMe configuration shows the drive. Make sure it shows hardware correctly and memory in the BIOS. It's really not too much like onboard devices. PCIe 3. Sometimes it'll play with PCIe bandwidth because they don't have it all. The other thing I always like to play with is the fan speeds. So, yeah, CPU fan speed and NAT. I don't know if it lets you. Wow, there's a lot of speeds in here. QFan configuration, I guess is the name for it. QFan control, auto, and they do fan profiles. I set these all to silent by default because I prefer to have it just quieter than slightly better temperatures. And for this computer where it's not getting pushed very hard and it's not getting pushed very hard and it's in an environment where quietness is nice, you want that. Generally leave secure boot on, but realistically it won't really matter. And save changes and reset. So yeah, here's everything I did. I turned on XMP. I went to a multi-core enhancement. I turned that off. It's technically overclocking. If you want a little bit better performance, it's not a bad idea to turn on. DRAM frequencies, that's all PXE. I turned on PXE boot and I set everything to silent. And now it's gonna boot. On Asus boards, the boot menu is F8. Everything else seems to use F12. I wish we'd standardize on this, but we aren't. So we give it a second or two, and if it's my personal system, I turn off the boot logo screen. Oh, what? It's not showing PXE devices. That's weird. Oh, that's probably why. I probably don't have, I only have CSM. What it looks like you have to do is, if you want to boot from non-Windows OSs, you have to say, launch CSM, yes, and you have to do UEFI and legacy OptiROMs. This basically lets you boot from stuff that is not secure boot Windows UEFI, which is what Microsoft's really pushing, but in my opinion, we should not completely lock down everything to Microsoft. Because Microsoft. So now it sees the IBA, which is the boot device. That's the network PXE device. And I will start booting it from my PXE, which is just going to throw on a image of Windows 10 that I've, and some programs that I personally like. And this is going to just be for some testing. And I'm going to shove a blank Windows 10 image on for the person afterwards. And I'll show some tricks with Windows 10. I think it's Shift Control F3 lets you enter what they call is, it's audit mode, I think. Which basically, when you have a Windows 10 system and it goes, oh, here's the setup menu. You press that keystroke, and then you can enter audit mode, which gives you full that, and that lets me install updates and programs, and then still have it as here's a new computer for you to set up. And now my system's booting into Windows PE. But when this is happening, we can go make the actual case. Because we've done the motherboard stuff, so now it's time to do the case, the power supply, the hard drive, and the DVD drive. Here's the case we get to work with. So it's a Cooler Master Silencio S600. Never really heard of or worked with this case before in the past. Looks fine. It's a ATX case. They say Silencio, which means silent, but realistically, they haven't sold me on anything that makes this silenter than any other case yet. But yeah, we'll find out.
has a cool tempered glass window, which I guess is the trend now. I kind of like how they put stuff on it so it's not just tempered glass, because I've seen some cases where it's just screws in a tempered glass, and that's annoying. That is a be very careful with that part type of thing, because those like to fall. Here is the actual Cooler Master goodie box. What do we get in the goodie box? There's actually some heft to this, so I'm curious now. Probably some hard drive mounts, I'm guessing, is what the weight is, but seriously, right. Oh, filters. Yeah, we get filters. And styrofoam filters. And are these noise? Yeah, these look like the noise blockers. So my guess is what it looks like is out. I guess that's where Silencio comes from. You get this noise blocking thing, and you can go put this on the top, or you can put a filter on the top. And I'm gonna put that on the top because I don't need the airflow. And since I don't need all the extra airflow, that's gonna be perfectly fine. And I'd rather have a silencer. And I think it probably has a similar one on the front if I'm going to make a guess. But let's find out. Back, that's PC case. There's nothing exciting on the back, I guess the back, and on the other side panel, which people put thumb screws on way too hard in the factory. Makes it so you can't take them off. I guess that's good, so it doesn't come off. I'm actually curious how they put these on. Do they actually have people putting these on, like with screwdrivers, or is it automated? Nah. Cases seem kind of annoying to automate because they're big and annoying. There's a lot of different types. I wouldn't know. I don't work in factory stuff. The computer parts of this. Yeah, I guess here's the other one. You get a nice big, this is a heavy side panel, and there's a piece of sound deadening stuff on it. So, okay, that's what gets the Silencio part. So what else do we get in here? We get don't eat stuff. That'll go into my next. No, I'm not gonna eat this. And then we get goodies, which is hard drive rails, which goes here, and some zip ties and screws. And for front panel connectors, we get a fan or two. We get USB 3 for the front. We get USB 2. We get another USB 2 because it's built-in card reader, and a fan. I guess it's an extender because it has a female fan. As a male fan with the female on. So there's that. And first thing is, let's put power supply in. I don't know if this is modular, but if it is, there's a lot of cables to get rid of, because, like, I'm running the system right now on the test bench with EPS 12 volt and a ATX connector, and I'll need one for the hard drive and optical drive, so that's it. Not really much to it. I guess when you don't have a graphics card and a ton of drives, the amount of cables you need goes way down. I guess I haven't really worked with many super. I guess this isn't low end, but it's like it doesn't have a ridiculous amount of parts like I'm used to. I'm just like I have a pile of hard drives. I'll throw that into a system. Because like my main kind of gaming desktop now just has 4 drives and a RAID 0 for games. Because it's like I'm gonna re-download them. Might as well have them fast. So it's not a modular PS. Oh, nope. Fully modular PSU. Okay, that's sweet. Has the 0 RPM idle mode. Has the new eco mode, which I think is kind of nice. Which I think so. Temperature shouldn't really matter. I guess, like, was it going to get hot enough to decrease lifespan? I don't know. It probably won't make a difference realistically. And here we go. Oh, I should probably think through the cabling because it might be a pain to plug stuff in. Yeah, it'll probably be doable. I'll probably just put it in there. And the power supply comes with a few cable goodies. Kind of modular cables. And 4 screws. The cool thing it is, they seem to just put a lot of foam like at the back where the power supply is, so it's harder for vibrations. So I guess for Silencio, and I guess tempered glass does make it a bit harder to silence, because glass is not normally known for being a silent material per se. They did fine. That's what I'll say. I guess we'll have to hear it. My guess is the fans will just never ramp up with any sort of semi-reasonable load, so it won't really be an issue, the noise. Because the new Intel chips, there's a lot of talk about power consumption on the 14 nanometer, and true, they do get very power hungry and you push them. But if you don't push them and you leave them at, let's say, 3 gigahertz and change, they're quite power efficient and not that power hungry. The problem is they don't perform that well, and if you don't clock them high. So it's a kind of annoying situation there that Intel has to battle, and hopefully they have their new 10 nanometer because I just like seeing better competition. That brings us to one more thing, or I guess the things that go into the case. So we got the power supply in. Now we gotta put the optical drive in. Man, I haven't worked with these for a little bit. But you want to be able to read discs, so here it comes. It is a Blu-ray drive, because I wanted to be able to read and write Blu-rays. So, in order to get at the optical drive, you have to open it up, push on the little thingies, and now the little plastic bit comes off. And you put in your optical drive. Which is here. Surprisingly enough, no one seems to have made black ones, but, and I think you can just kind of slide it in and it will click into place. Yep, there it goes. And the optical drive's in, it's not coming out, and it's covered. And this cover, like I think, has sound deadening, which is cool. And there's a big filter on the front. Fans-wise, this case has one intake, one exhaust. It's fine. They seem reasonably high quality, which I'm a fan of. Awful pun. But I enjoy cases that put let's put a little bit more money into the fans, because they do matter. And then you got the hard drive to put in. So we have a 2 terabyte Seagate hard drive. Nothing special about these. It's just 2 terabytes. I think a lot of people have been buying these 2 terabyte Seagate Barracuda compute drives, and the reason they've been buying them is because they are cheap. I think they are $50, and they look good on paper. They say 7200 RPM, which I'm assuming are. I've never tested it, and they are 256 megs of cache. Time to take this system and put the motherboard in it. First thing, before you forget, is put the stupid the I/O shield in. The other thing I kind of hate is, since I work with a lot of older hardware, no one keeps these. These always get tossed. I have so many boards that I've just lost these for. Or even if I didn't lose them, someone else did. Or I pretty much have to keep them taped to the board, otherwise they get gone. Also, I think the prime boards aren't especially cheap, if I remember right. So, I'm surprised they have a white, gray metal unpainted one. I wish I would have spent the extra 5 cents. Luckily, it looks like this case comes with the screw holes in the right spots to put in a ATX motherboard, which is great because that's what probably 97% of people are putting in these. I don't know why you put ITX in here. I guess MATX is a bit different, and I could see someone putting an MATX board in here, but man. Oh, this is always a pain. Get fitting just right. I hate trying to get fitting these boards perfectly. There we go. And normally, since this is a slightly nicer case, they probably did the thingy where, yep, they did. Well, one of the screw holes, it's slightly sticking out, so you can kind of have it holding in like this, while not actually having to put in a screw. Just super handy. And now, it's called open up the screw baggie, and hopefully the right screw is visible. Well, you can either read the manual, which I'm too lazy to do, or you can try to find the screw in about the right number. Which, that's what I did. Normally it's the ones with like the hex tops are the motherboard screws and power supply. Well, one just fell off the table. Lovely. You know what, I'll say, I wish we'd kind of replace ATX with a different size, because I feel like the problem with ATX are graphics cards keep getting bigger and heavier and more powerful, and ATX has never built, I guess, AT, which was pretty much the same in terms of slot hardware, except for the actual standards of data, was never built for cards this big. Also, CPU cooling is not great because it's kind of back in the corner, and VRM cooling especially is kind of forgotten about. I wish they'd do something about that. Now the thing is, though, like they tried doing CPU cooling with BTX, Intel did, back in the days of the Pentium 4 when CPUs would run especially hot, and the GPUs didn't make that much heat, and you just put the main air intake onto the CPU, which was kind of a smart idea back then, and we got many old Dell Optiplexes and similar that followed that idea and did fine. So we have the motherboard in, and now it's time to start putting other stuff in. So first of all, plugging in the fans. Hey, they're nice enough to put 4-pin fans in here. It comes with a little zip tie. Just kind of tuck the cables out of the way so it's not visible and annoying. I guess it's not going to be a graphics card, so it doesn't really matter. And now we go to the other cables that we're going to start to see in this case. So, first of all is power supply cables. Because it's modular power supply, we don't have to deal with all of them. So we get a GPU power cable, won't need that. We'll probably need 2 SATA because we'll want one for that drive and one for the one down in the bottom. Definitely going to need CPU power. Going to need a 24-pin. I think that's it. I'm surprised how little that is. So, I guess there's a few ways to do it. I'm going to start with putting the cables on the board and where it needs to go, and then routing it in the back. Because the back can be a bit more ugly, whereas the front, you should try at least. Actually, this is the GPU power cable. I wish they'd standardize on the GPU and CPU power cables. That's annoying. I don't know why, because they're both 12-volt, relatively high current cables. I don't know why we need to have 2 standards. I think the problem is different standards bodies made them, which leads to 2 different standards for the same thing, basically, which is annoying. The other cable I wish someone would standardize was the motherboard front panel headers, which for some reason no one has standardized that. The one thing that does make me happy with modern motherboards is ones like this, is we're seeing a lot more kind of white and black boards and less weird colors, which is great because I like white and black boards, and also they look good with pretty much everything. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have done that. But I have to find a way to plug in the cables with the modular power supply. Probably can't see it, but the modular power supply's cables are basically all hidden, so I can't reach them easily. I guess now it's time to do the plugging in the 24-pin. The 24-pin. There's actually semi-reasonable rumors now of them replacing the 24-pin with a 10-pin and removing everything but the 12-volt rail, which I think is great. I think they should have done a while ago. The problem is it's just now I have a ton of power supplies that I'm going to have to buy adapters for, which I'm almost certain someone will make. I'm going to be almost certain there's going to be adapters both ways. The way from the old power supplies to the new board should be a lot easier than the new power supplies to old boards, but if you're buying a new system, it probably won't be a huge issue. So, tug the 24-pin through. There should be a reasonable amount of room to somehow find the spot that that cable plugs into on your modular power supply. Now back to wiring up parts. So we have to wire up the optical drive and the hard drive. We're going to need 2 SATA cables. I think they're the same length, but we'll find out. Okay, stupid twist ties taking their time. There we go. And it looks like, are they the same length? Nope, got a slightly longer. This one's slightly longer, it seems like. So we're going to use the longer one for the optical drive because it's farther out of the way. So optical drive is here. We'll just plug in one of these SATA cables. And it's in. And then now we have the modular cable. Plug it into the back of the power supply. And do it for the other modular cable, which will go to a singular hard drive. Oh, hard drives. You guys, I've seen some numbers saying that hard drive companies are kind of struggling. Because, or not struggling, but sales have changed in recent years due to how people are storing data differently. Because a lot of cheap laptops, and even a lot of laptops have switched to solid state only, which is a big change for drives. So the number of hard drives sold, like in quantity, has been going down quite a bit. But the capacity of drives has been going up, because if you're going to buy a hard drive, you might as well buy a big one, seems to be the mentality. The other thing is that surprised me about that report was they showed a significant amount of sales coming from home DVR boxes, which I didn't even think about, but I guess there's quite a few, like, I think we even have one at home, which is like the whole your AT&T or Comcast or DirecTV or whoever gives you a box to store all your downloaded movies and stuff on, or TV shows when you want to pause them. And they normally want relatively big drives, like 2 terabytes, because it's video and they want HD and reasonably nice quality. And they want cheap. And I think I have boxes of these old drives. Some of them are kind of finicky, where you have to like put them in computers and they won't spin up unless they receive a certain signal. Works fine in computers, it's just NASes, and I think a few computers don't like that. But normally it's perfectly fine. They're generally extremely quiet. They're not super fast, because it doesn't matter. It's video. It's a good amount of data, but it's not super high bandwidth. And it works. So, other things to plug in. So you get this weird fan cable extension thingy. We're just going to take this out, because I don't know exactly why they need it. And, well, our motherboard has a ton of fan headers here, so no reason to use it. Just plug that fan straight into the motherboard. Other headers we have the USB 2s, which should be fine, and USB 3. And then the stupid front panel connectors, which no one can find a way to standardize, it seems like. So let's get the big USB 3 in. USB 3 is such a big front panel connector. I wish they'd make it a better standard, and it's here on this board. Okay. See, I try to be nice to systems and like put cables hidden away, but some things like this USB 3 guy is just so big and thick that it's a pain to hide. Yeah, this would probably be the best they'll do. Yeah, this is gonna be an ugly cable to hide. Yeah, I guess you can fold it that way. I think they had to use all the pins to get the amount of data they wanted, because you couldn't get the high bandwidth without getting... Because if you want high frequencies, which is what you need to get a lot of data, you need high quality cables, and USB 3 went the other approach, which was let's do the, instead of doing high bandwidth, let's do, add a couple more cables. So I guess I missed something, and what I thought was 2 USB cables. I guess I forgot about front panel audio. So this board has that. And where the heck did they put the front panel audio connector on this guy? Oh, there it is. And it looks like, because there's only one USB 2 going up, I guess they're just both USB 3 ports, and they painted it blue. Because I thought for a second, maybe they had a hub, and then I was like, nah, they just painted both of them blue. The interesting thing with new boards is you don't see many USB 2 headers now. Like, I think this board only has, like, 2. Because the old board, some of those old high-end boards have, like, a ton of front panel USB 2 headers. Well, they don't. And then, the most annoying part is these stupid little front panel things. So I'm going to have to pull out my phone to get the lights on it. I could read the manual, but it's also labeled on this board. Another thing that annoys me about boards is boards that don't label ports. So what all do we have is a reset switch, a hard drive LED, and the power LEDs and power switches. And the other thing that kind of annoys me even more with this is there's a semi-standard format that everyone seems to pretty much use, but like no one can say that's an industry standard and actually commit to it. Cause like, so that's kind of irking me, but like, I think I've almost memorized it. Like, it's basically a standard at this point. I think I've seen multiple brands use it too. Like once, there we go. And the other fun part of doing this thing is coming out and seeing if you did it right. Which I normally do, but sometimes you get it wrong, and it's the whole, why doesn't it boot thingy. And other than tidying up, oh yeah, one more thing, SATA cables. One more thing to hook up on the system is SATA cables. So we got one SATA cable to the optical drive and one to the hard drive, and that's it. And yeah, we'll be nice, we'll tuck it away in the back so it's less ugly. I guess it has a window, so I can't be lazy when it comes to cable management. Oh, these cables. Right angle, they use right angle SATA cables a lot with motherboards. I have not been a personally big fan of them because they seem to, they just never seem to be the right one for me. But someone must be liking them. The other thing is with these new boards, due to how PCI Express stuff is laid out and just this chipset, is you often get ports disabled if you use M.2s. And, well, I haven't read the motherboard manual because I'm lazy. So, we'll find out. We'll see if they both show up, and if they don't, I'll move some ports around. And then hopefully they will. And the other big question is my cable management. That's ugly. Best approach is, in my view, is just kind of squish it. So yeah, make sure all the cables are there. And they give you some cable ties. I should use more. I will do that. Using to tie up the big thick things of cables going around. And then the fun test of this, which is the whole, did I plug it in right and does stuff turn on when I push the power button? We'll find out. Well, overall, I'd say that went pretty well. Looks kind of nice. Nothing really wrong with it. Works fine. Pretty darn quiet. I think the loudest thing's the hard drive. And it's running Windows in the background. Yet to have a single issue. Might do some more videos on some parts of this later. But thanks for watching this video and subscribe for more electronic stuff.